Good morning. Today I have a great pleasure to interview Ms. Rushan Abbas, the founder and executive director of the campaign for Uyghurs. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Matthews, for giving me this chance to talk about this atrocity of this century.
It's a pleasure for us. My first question is, what is your purpose to visit in Poland?
This active genocide is happening for several years now, and we still have many countries, they don't really know the details of what the extent this genocide is happening, and also China's forced labor of the Uyghurs and using Uyghurs as slaves and having the Uyghur slaves' blood, sweat, and the tears, and manipulating the countries and the economic advantage, the economic advance that China is making from the Uyghur slaves is undermining some of the countries and the companies. So we thought it's important to go and talk to people and do some raise awareness work, because when it comes down to genocide and the slavery, that's against any country's principles, constitutions, and the basic human rights for Uyghurs. It is survival rights. That's the fundamental rights of human dignity. So we thought we will talk to people and do some raise awareness work.
All right. Can you explain why does Chinese government hate so much Uyghurs? What's the purpose, the reason?
Okay, go back a little bit. The Uyghurs, we have our own language, culture, and as you see, we have our own ethnic differences, and we believe in different religion. So anything that's different is a threat to the Chinese Communist regime. Any kind of original thought that people believe other than the Chinese Communist atheist ideologies is a threat. And the Chinese government tried to assimilate our people for years, but that didn't happen. They were not successful, despite of persecuting Uyghurs under the different labels ever since the occupation in 1949. But at the end, they realized the only way to get rid of the Uyghurs is leaving them only two options. One, you give up your ethnic identity, give up your language, and become a Han Chinese, and we allow you to live. Or if you want to continue to live as a Uyghurs, you disappear. And that's the attitude today.
So the communism itself doesn't respect any differences between
no.
nations?
Yes, because you see that from China's persecution against Tibetans, Southern Mongolians, and even the freedom is a threat to the Chinese government, which we witnessed in Hong Kong, and the authoritarian regimes like China. They basically feed themselves with brutality and the cruelness, and what they are doing to the Uyghurs today is a great example of what China wants to do to the world. Xi Jinping is speaking actually about, hypocritically, he's talking about peace talks and this and that, but one part of his remarks today should bring attention from the international community, because he's talking about the changes coming which no one ever saw in 100 years. What does that mean? Last 70-some years since the Holocaust, the world worked so hard to set up the basic human rights and the dignity, and they try to give countries like Poland, Ukraine, and all the countries in Europe the respect and the rights and equality. But that's what Xi Jinping and the Chinese government wants to change, because today this is not just about the sake of the Uyghurs' future anymore. This is about the future of the world, the free world that we know today, because freedom and democracy and the basic rights, fundamental rights of the people, that's at stake.
What are the methods used against Uyghurs by the Chinese government?
So what's happening in the last several years is mass detention. 3 to 5 million innocent Uyghur people are detained today in the concentration camps, forced labor facilities, and the prisons. And the second is forced labor and the slavery, and the mental and the physical torture, forced sterilizations, forced abortions, forcibly inserting IUD devices in women's bodies with a surgical procedure so nobody can remove it. And also, about 1 million children are abducted from their families, parents, and sent to state-run orphanages, child abduction. And also, Uyghur women are forced to marry Han Chinese men. And the Chinese government is deploying the government officials to live inside of the Uyghur homes, supervise and monitor their daily lives. And when most of the husbands and the men at home are taken to the concentration camps or the forced labor facilities or detention, the women are facing sexual abuse inside of their own homes. And what frustrates me is, where are the feminists, the activists who are supposed to protect women's rights? Whereas United Nations, the entire United Nations is set up after the World War II to prevent atrocities like this. But while Chinese communist regime is doing this kind of atrocities, and the Uyghur women's bodies are being the battleground of this genocide, Xi Jinping's wife, Peng Liyuan, is the special envoy in the United Nations for women's and girls' rights. Can you believe this?
This sounds like methods used by Nazis in the Second World War, right?
Yeah.
Or even worse.
Absolutely. That's exactly what's happening.
Do they use any modern methods like invigilation by some electronic devices, cameras, etc.?
Oh yeah, that is another thing, you know. Our homeland we call East Turkestan, but official name is Xinjiang, being the testing ground to test out the most modern technologies and the complete surveillance police state. Every corner has the checkpoints and the QR scanning codes on every home, GPS tracking devices on every vehicle, and the people are being monitored with facial recognition softwares, iris scanning systems. So every single movement of the Uyghurs are being controlled. Even everyone's cell phone has a spy devices, apps to monitor.
Can you tell what are the companies that helps the government, the Chinese government, to use that method?
The United States government is sanctioning some of the companies who are completely involved on those surveillance police state, and the companies like Hikvision and Huawei is the biggest and behind everything, and TikTok is spyware on everyone's phone. When anybody uses TikTok on their phone, which means the Chinese government and Beijing is sitting and monitoring everything going in and out with that phone. Also, one of the American company actually, Thermo Fisher, they actually helped the Chinese government collecting Uyghur people's DNA samples, which those DNA samples and the health check that mandatorily implemented against the Uyghurs in the end of 2016, now those are the base for the current organ harvesting of the Uyghurs.
So also the organ harvesting, I heard that this is the main, let's say, persecution of Falun Gong,
Yes.
but also in Uyghurs.
Yes, Falun Gong victims were the first for the organ harvesting, and because this became such a huge market for China, it's a huge trade, very large amount of money that Chinese government is making with human organs, and now they are using the Uyghurs for the same purpose.
You also mentioned about the slavery and the forced labor. Does any brand from Western Europe uses the products produced?
Yes, every car out there that being produced in the last 5 years, Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, and the Tesla, and the Toyota even, most of the other industries using the Uyghur slaves on the different parts of the vehicle. Anything that goes into the parts. And the Chinese government deliberately did this to make all these companies complicit, and it's like hooking them. So these companies will be quiet, like Volkswagen. They were complicit during the World War II using Jewish people as forced labor. And today the history is repeating, and they are doing the same thing. They have a manufacturing facility in our province, in our homeland, and doing the same thing. And then when we were trying to get the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act passed, the companies like Nike and the Heinz Ketchup and the Coca-Cola and a few other companies, they were actively lobbying against passing the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act because they wanted to continue to make profit out of my people's blood, sweat, and the tears.
Aren't they aware of that? I mean,
oh, they do. They do know everything. But just like you mentioned about it's the same as the Nazi Germany, what they did during the Holocaust. During the Nazi Germany times, when they were taking the Jewish people and they using their forced labor and killing people, the countries and the companies around the world, they knew what was happening, but they all just continued to do business with Nazi Germany in the name of saying, oh, Nazi Germany is so strong, and they wanted to just continue to make money, and they advanced Nazi Germany's economy, enabled Nazi Germany's economy to murder more people. Then later, after everything ended, they regretted, and they said information flow was slow and they didn't know it, and they all tried to claim the ignorance. Well, this is 21st century information era. There's tons of documents, testimonies from the victims, testimonies from even the perpetrator himself. There's a former policeman, Han Chinese policeman, testified in the London Uyghur Tribunal. And there are leaked documents after documents. We have so many documents confirming the Chinese government's crimes and the genocidal policies, linking it to Xi Jinping, to the Chinese government directly. And we have tons of reports. Brave reporters like yourself and many others did an amazing job covering this story. So today, nobody can claim the ignorance anymore. Genocide and the slavery should be our red line. And this is the time for the leaders of the world and the countries and the companies and the individuals to make a stance. They need to be on the right side of the history, because this is going to go down on the history books. When your children ask you, what did you do when you knew this genocide was happening? Did you do your part? I hope that every one of you can look at your children's face and say, I did my part and I did what I could.
Has anything changed over years? Because the information about the persecution of Uyghurs and other nations and minorities in China is spread around the world. Has anything changed for you?
Yes, actually, we do have 12 countries and the parliaments from those, some of the countries, total of 12, determined China's actions against the Uyghur people is genocide. And also we have a United Nations Human Rights Council report documenting and reporting, stating everything we have been saying, crying out loud for years, confirming the mass detention, torture, sexual abuse, forced sterilization, child abduction, forced labor. Although they did not say it's genocide, but they say it may constitute crimes against humanity, but everything, most of the act in the United Nations' own description of the crimes of genocide. On Article 2, they state 5 elements, and 4 of them that proved in their own report. Also, when at the beginning of these atrocities in 2018, 2019, when United Nations had a joint statement criticizing the Chinese government's policies and the human rights abuses and those atrocities, we had only 22 countries signing the joint statement. But now we have 50 countries signed the joint statement. So there are some changes, and people are recognizing, and also people are seeing China for what it is, not just a genocidal regime, but a threat to the freedom and democracy, threat to the entire world. And look at your next door right here, the Putin and Russia's illegal invasion in Ukraine. That showed to the world what happens when you continue to appease the dictatorship government. Well, Putin's invasion came in a bright daylight with tanks and the bombers and the armed soldiers, but China's invasion is unlike Putin's. China's comes in with smiley faces, suitcases of money, and the trade deals. So the world communities need to be really alert for this, because when those leaders of certain countries, when they say that they want to stay in balance or they need to stay neutral, when they are voluntarily giving up their conscience and their freedom of speech, and they are not taking a stance against the genocide, they need to know, they need to realize what they are giving up is not just their freedom of speech or their just the simple stance, but it's their sovereignty of their country, because China is here. China is everywhere. What China is doing is not just obtained within the borders. It's everywhere.
Yes, the war in Ukraine and the aggression in Ukraine showed that Putin or Xi Jinping cooperates with Putin.
Yes.
So we hope that this will also put Xi Jinping in the truth. I mean, in different light,
Yes.
because sometimes in Europe we are far from China. So and the Chinese government uses the money to, let's say, make the picture whiter than it is.
Yes.
And did you meet any Polish politicians?
Unfortunately, we couldn't this time. It was really short timing, and we didn't have a very lead time. And I understand there's a lot going on here. So, but hopefully we will come back, and we will meet with some government people and politicians here.
Yes. I mean, I think you should try to to reach them and just speak also to politicians, because when we made an interview on the streets and asked previously about the situation in China, and when we explained what's happening there, the regular people are against the Communist Party and for all persecuted nations. So I think that the revealing information is very, very important.
Yes.
My last question is about your personal. What's your story? How you left your nation, your origin, the country of origin? What happened to your sister, etc.? Can you tell to our viewers?
Yes, thank you for bringing the attention to my personal connection. I became a full-time activist today out of necessity. I came to the United States in 1989 after I was born, raised, and educated in Urumqi, the capital city of our homeland, East Turkestan. And I went to United States as a visiting scholar, and then I became a graduate student. My major was biology. And then eventually I became activist while I was there. Well, actually, I should go back a little bit. I was an activist back in my university years, but just doing some organizing, co-organizing some of the protests there. But after I came to the United States, I was working, studying, and having my professional life, but at the same time, I was advocating at the side for Uyghur people. But then when this genocidal policies accelerated rapidly in 2017, my husband's entire family went missing from summer of 2017. So in 2018, I initiated and led the One Voice, One Step protest globally, and mobilizing the people from 14 countries and 18 cities on the same day, protest against this mass detention. And then September 2018, I participated on the panel in Washington at one of their think tanks, and speaking about China's genocidal policies and exposing the horrible conditions in the concentration camps and outlining the fate of my in-laws. Then 6 days after that speech, which was my first public speech and televised, live streamed on YouTube, and my own sister, Dr. Rushan Abbas, this is my sister, and she's a retired medical doctor, and she was taken as a retaliation for my activism in America as an American citizen. And today, I am here trying to raise awareness, talk to Polish people at the cost of her freedom, because 4 years and 6 months now, she's in dark dungeon somewhere, paying the price for my advocacy. And I also have another picture that I want to raise her case as well. This is Riya Tursun, a mother. Yesterday was her birthday, 5th birthday in detention. And her crime is she visited Turkey because her son, Cevlan Şirmehmet, was a student in Turkey. He was going to school in Turkey only because she went to Turkey as a visitor and they visit her son in Turkey. When she came back after this mass detention started, she was taken because the Chinese government labels 26 countries as in danger to the people, and they act like Turkey is their friend, but traveling to Turkey is a crime, traveling to Saudi Arabia is a crime, traveling to UAE, Qatar, Malaysia, Indonesia, any of the Muslim majority countries, they say that these Uyghur people exposed to terrorism. So imagine while Xi Jinping is visiting UAE and Saudi Arabia and the other Muslim countries and act like Xi Jinping is a friend with Erdogan. In reality, anybody who ever visited Turkey are treated as people exposed to terrorism.
So this is horrible. I mean, the persecuting the members of families that stayed in China because of what you did in the United States,
Yes.
etc.
Yeah.
So that's what they want to. I mean, break you. I mean, yes.
Exactly.
Just you to make you to stop doing
Yes.
by persecuting your members of family.
Right, yeah, silencing me, try to silence me, intimidate me, and taking my sister as a hostage. But that's why it's so important for me to go around the world and tell people the true reality of the Chinese communist regime. People here in Poland understand how it is to be under the complete dictatorship communist regimes, and also Poland is in the front line with the war on Ukraine, and the Xi Jinping just announced to the world 2 days ago by going to visiting Putin and basically confirming that he's behind the Putin's invasion. So for us today, just like defending Ukraine is defending the entire Europe, holding China accountable and speaking out against China, divest from China, and defend the Uyghurs' rights is like defending the future of this world. Because if we don't hold China accountable now, it will be our children and our grandchildren who will pay the consequences of an illiberal world. Because the freedom and democracy is at stake here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your talk. We're Christian television. Most of our members are Protestants, and we pray for you and other nations because we would like everyone to live in freedom and to choose the religion what he or she wants to. We do care about your situation and put a big coverage about situation in China and other minorities there. So I hope this interview will also.
Yes, and I want to just add one more thing because what
please.
you just said about religion. For the Chinese communist regime, religion is a threat. Any kind of religion. So they are announcing openly on the Chinese state media that they are rewriting the Bible and the other religious books and make it compatible with communist atheist ideologies. Imagine what kind of religion can be compatible with atheist ideologies, with communist ideologies. So I'm extremely disappointed in the Pope because Pope's supposed to defend the religion. Pope's supposed to speak out when entire Uyghur nation, all the Uyghur women are facing forced abortions. Where is he? He is awfully silenced, and he's collaborating with the Chinese government. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is going to go down to the history. And I hope this Pope is going to take a stance and be on the right side of the history. Otherwise, we will write this down and naming him and how he was complicit with China's genocide when China's waging war on religion.
Yeah, I fully agree. This is horrible that this Pope doesn't take any stance, the clear stance for Russia, the clear stance for protests in Hong Kong, etc. But let's push and speak about it.
Thank you so much, Matthew.
Thank you so much. I had the pleasure to interview Ms. Rushan Abbas, the founder and executive director of Campaign for Uyghurs. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Good morning. Today I have a pleasure to make an interview with Mr. Abdulhakim Idris. Good morning. Your wife, Rushan Abbas, has just said very moving and touching words to our viewers and to Polish people. Are you also the activist for the rights of Uyghurs? Can you tell more about this to our people?
Thank you so much, and I'm thankful to having me here for interview. I am a victim of this Chinese current genocide. It's personal for me. Also, I am an activist and I fought for the Uyghurs' freedom almost 30 years. I'm one of the 5 Uyghurs ever came to Europe, and especially in Germany in 1990s, and did asylum there, and they settled in Germany, in Munich. And I'm one of the funded the organizations, Uyghur organization in Germany, including World Uyghur Congress. I'm the founder of the organizations. So currently I am executive director for Center for Uyghur Studies, which is like a think tank based in Washington, D.C. We want to bring the fact and data and the source from Uyghur perspective on the table. So many journalists, researchers, decision makers can see our argument.
And what are the facts about Uyghurs in China?
The fact is, we are talking about genocide, but I will give you a little bit details. When the Xi Jinping came to power 2012-2013, he began something I can compare with the Nazi Germany. How the Nazi Germany first took the wealth, land, apartments, buildings, companies from the Jewish people away. Same process was made by us. First, the Communist Party targets, 2 angles from the society. One is business people, landowner, corporations, put them everybody in the jail and concentration camps, and took their wealth away. At the same time, they targeted community leaders, such as intellectual writers, religious scholars, comedians, singers, sport people, and those were the target. 2, financial, spiritual, away. Then target all Uyghur nations, separated more than 1 million kids from their parents, put many people in long-term prisons, more than 1 million people. They transport inner China, what we call Harbin area, it's near to Siberia, like a Soviet gulags. And then put many others in the concentration camps. And the rest are, rest of the people not in concentration camps, they are forced to work from 18 years to 65 years. Maybe that there's somebody, previously he owned the land, but his land is confiscated by the Chinese Communist government, giving to a Han Chinese Communist cadre. He is right now become like a slavery for own land to work there. This is the situation. And today we are talking about normalizing this situation, institutionalizing this situation. There are some soft talk, but in the reality, daily people arresting. And the term the Uyghur region is Turkestan, like an open air prisons. And I will add one thing here. We are living in information area. Many people think, we cannot see the videos, pictures, datas. How could you tell this? Because Chinese Communist government built a digital wall around our country. They took from everybody DNA test, voice test, health check, and you cannot even, you can try with every technology, but your voice is somewhere, you cannot communicate, or your face are there. So this is the reality, and yeah.
And what does the Chinese government want to achieve here? I mean, to use Uyghurs as slavers for the factories, or assimilate, or what's the reason?
If you look at China's demographic, as Chinese Communist government always tell, 1.4 billion population. In their statistic, Uyghurs are 12 million, with the other Turkic population 15 million. But that's not the reality, because Chinese Communist government just allowed the 2 kids from every family to register, rest of them illegal. So if you have 5 kids, 2 is in this registration, in statistic, 3 not. So with you, we are talking about between 20-25 million people of East Turkestan, and those people were living there, you know. And when the Xi Jinping came to power, and he, you know, want to dominate. He has as you know, he has a dream to dominate the world. They have plan. They have plan 2025, 35, then 2049 plan. So they want to be, you know, in technology first, in military first, then for dominant. To achieve that, Xi Jinping want to create one nation, one language, one culture, and one religion. It's the CCP, communist ideology. So the Uyghurs, as you know, we have different language. We have a religious background, and so we became the target for Xi Jinping's dream to take over the world. We are the first casualty for his ambitions. Second is the Belt Road Initiative, what China want to, you know, bring other countries under their military, economic, security, diplomatic influence, is the Belt Road Initiative. And the hub for the Belt Road Initiative is in East Turkestan, from our country, from Kashgar to Pakistan, Central Asia, Russia. And third is our country are very rich with the natural wealth, you know, gas, oil, minerals, and the earth, others for the new technology in the world. So he want to get rid of all the population. And then what he did is, you know, this is very difficult to explain and describe for the world community. He's killing people, disappearing people, you know, and letting people die. That he built a crematoria front of the concentration camps, and he says, you know, works makes you harmony, like Arbeit macht frei in German. That's the same slogan. And then he is trying to put all the Uyghurs, you know, so become like a Han people. He's trying to, you know, transform from one nation to other nation. For example, the Chinese Communist government right now in those camps, you know, engineering new method, transforming from one nation to other. You are maybe 40 years old. You will sit, you know, and the days and the weeks and the months, you have to denounce your past. What you did was all wrong, you know, and then you have to, you know, give allege for the Communist Party. You should thank the Communist Party, Xi Jinping, that you can breathe, that you can still alive. It's the situation we are going on. So I think this should be a warning sign for the world community. If China cannot tolerate in its own border, which claims, you know, some small group like Uyghurs, there are other nationality, they have other language. How can they, you know, tolerate other religion, other people, other looking, you know? This should be a warning sign.
Your wife mentioned about the horrible things that the Chinese government does to the women. I mean, also forced marriages. Does the politics of one child in the past and the more men than women in China, has this any impact on that they take your women to marriage?
That's one aspect for this intermarriage propaganda of Chinese Communist government. But reality, the Chinese Communist government will cut the root for the Uyghur nation become, alive. If you take for them Uyghur children away, and you will raise them in Han Chinese thinking, even these kids are forced to wear clothes from 16th, 15th centuries Chinese clothes, which normal Chinese kid in Beijing or Shanghai or Tianjin not wearing these clothes. Their kids are like a Western kids, from New York or from Europe, but they, want to influence the mindset, brainwash for the Uyghur kids. One side taking the already born Uyghur kids away. Second is, let the Uyghur girls forcefully marry with Han Chinese, so that the kids are become Han Chinese. Then if you don't want to marry, then they take away the motherhood from you with the sterilization other. So this is the cutting next generation, and there are reports, Chinese own data reports shows the dramatically reducing for the birth of the Uyghur kids. There is no chance right now. This is I think modern genocide. You cannot see the gas camera, you cannot see the mass shootings. They're all like without documentation. The differences between Nazis and concentration camps and their mass killing, and between the Chinese Communist government doesn't show us records. You cannot see it, not yet. But I think it will come out, and there are some leaked document from detentions. If you analyze the pictures from kids to 80 years old, what were their crimes? You cannot believe, So it's targeting one nation, and then what the Chinese Communist government tested in our area, they used is Turkestan like a giant human test field for their surveillance, mass detention, DNA collection, forced labor, disappearance, and they are transporting this system with the technology to Tibet. Today, the Tibet's Communist Party chief is the former deputy Communist Party chief for our country. He is bringing the know-how, the experience to Tibet, and the same is and some Chinese police were trained in our country. They are right now, located in Hong Kong. So this is coming to many Han Chinese population, and we think if the world cannot stop this genocide, this Uyghur genocide, this is my opinion. If the world, cannot stop this Uyghur genocide, still thinking, engaging with China, and doing business with them, and seeing as a peacemaker, or something else, I think that will be late for the world community. And today we can see in China, because we are following Chinese propaganda machinery inside the China, outside the China. They are supporting a Russian war against Ukraine to Putin, economically, diplomatically, militarily, financially, even in propaganda machinery. Maybe from here it's not too far away, Belgrade. You should look in Belgrade how the Chinese propaganda machinery working there. They are, because they're owned by China, they are repeating Russian narratives. And the same is in Arabic-speaking countries. CGT and Arabic is Chinese news agency or TV stations. They are, talking there, and in Latin America, everywhere. So China is one part in this propaganda war, and many people doesn't see that. That surprised me.
Can you also explain how does the life of regular Uyghurs look like? I mean, if someone in Xinjiang, for instance, doesn't want to involve in a protest, just want to live peacefully, can he or she do that? Or
Yeah, there's what China give the Uyghurs is, you will become Han Chinese. You speak Han Chinese language. You will obey party. Your mother, your father, your relative be Communist Party. You can live with us. There is some Uyghurs doing that, but still those Uyghurs are living under fear. You know, the fear is so big. Everybody looking for themselves. They cannot think about their family, kids, father, mother. They are thinking on themselves. This is the fear right now, what the Uyghur people are living in our country. And the Chinese Communist government's surveillance is everywhere, even in your room. If you go your room, you have to scan code. If you go out, you have to scan the code. If you are in your apartments area, everywhere, cameras watching. And even though those cameras, recognize if you're upset or you have something, and they will police show up, and that's the reality.
And who is taken to the concentration camps or to the forced labor camps? I mean, the police come and just take a man, and you will work there. Does it look like that, or you have to do something?
Everybody has nowadays the phone, and they have to install a special apps. So Chinese Communist government can see what are you doing on the phone. And you think they came up on the show, the police? No, they just call you. Show up. You will go there. Or just, they're coming and they're taking you away. And this is the situation.
Okay, at the end, what would you like to tell to Polish people?
I think Polish people have a history to be a victim of Nazi Germany and victim of the communism, and they lived under religious oppression from the communist government, and they understand how a person, taken away honor, spiritual value, human being away, what we become. So I think the Polish people can understand the Uyghur situation. If we talk about this issue, can personalize, imagine what we are going through. That's one aspect. Second aspect is we see, from Uyghur perspective, Putin invade Ukraine because of China. China is one part of this war, and many people doesn't see it. We think, look at Chinese propaganda machinery, not only in China, around the world. What are they, doing for the Putins and the militarily? If you don't cut the lifeline for the Russian military from Chinese sides, this war will go on. And that's our warning sign. And we want to share our experience with the world community, what we are living through. Nobody should go through this.
Okay, thank you very much for the interview. We are, in fact, Christian television. We are Protestants, and we pray for you and for all nations to live in freedom, to choose their religion. Everyone should have the right to choose the religion what they have, not like in communism. So it was a pleasure to speak to you, Mr. Abdulhakim Idris.
If you allow me, if
Yes,
you're from
please.
a Christian the TV organization, you should look Chinese narrative to rewrite the Bible. How they, monitor Chinese Christian. The Chinese war on religion, Christianity, Buddhism, and Islam. It's not China's against the Muslims. They are doing same against the Buddhism, Falun Gong, and Christianity, and the many Christian, including the Pope, doesn't want to see if Chinese official media declared they want to rewrite the Bible. There is no word from them. That's even from the Muslim scholars or institution. It's very terrible.
Thank you for this information also and for the interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
you.